the language nobody taught you. Have you ever felt like conversations happen in two dimensions while you're stuck seeing only one? There's a frequency most people can't hear, a conversation beneath the conversation. While words dance on the surface, souls are screaming their deepest truths through cracks they don't even know exist. What if I told you that every human interaction is a confession? That behind every smile, every criticism, every moment of silence, someone is revealing their most guarded secrets? This isn't about becoming a human lie detector. This isn't about gaining leverage or winning games. This is about learning to hear the whispers of the human heart when it thinks nobody's listening. Truth 1. Every soul wears armor to survive. From our first breath, we learn that authenticity is dangerous. So we craft versions of ourselves that feel safer, more acceptable, more likely to survive the judgment of a world that taught us love comes with conditions. The cheerful person who never shows pain. They learned that sadness makes others uncomfortable. The one who always has to be right. They discovered that being wrong meant being worthless. The perfectionist who can't rest. They internalized that their value depends on their output. Watch for the moments when someone's composure cracks. That's where the real person begins. Truth 2. What we condemn reveals what we deny. Here's something that will reshape how you see conflict forever. What triggers someone reveals what haunts them. The person who can't stand fake people? They're usually at war with their own authenticity. Someone who obsesses over others being selfish? They've likely sacrificed themselves so completely they've forgotten their own needs exist. The one constantly calling out attention seekers. They're starving for the very recognition they condemn. We don't hate behaviors in others. We hate the parts of ourselves we've disowned. Truth 3. Silence screams louder than words. Sometimes the most important conversations happen in what isn't said. Notice when someone suddenly goes quiet, when they give you surface answers to depth questions, when they laugh a beat too long after something that wasn't funny. Silence is rarely empty. It's full of everything they wish they could say but don't trust you enough to hear. It's the space between their truth and their terror. Truth 4. Loud virtue hides quiet shame. Beware the person whose virtue feels like a spotlight, whose kindness comes with an audience, whose goodness needs constant validation. Real strength whispers. Authentic compassion doesn't require applause. Genuine confidence doesn't need to prove itself hourly on social platforms. When someone's goodness feels performative, ask yourself, what are they trying to convince themselves of? Truth 5. Self-deception comes before other deception. Here's what changes everything about human interaction. Most people aren't lying to deceive you. They're lying to survive themselves. I'm fine isn't meant to trick you. It's a mantra they've repeated so often, they almost believe it. I don't care what people think isn't arrogance. It's armor against a world that taught them their opinions were worthless. Self-deception isn't moral failure. It's psychological first aid. Truth 6. Superiority masks inferiority. Watch someone who constantly needs to remind you of their achievements, who puts others down casually, who dominates conversations with their importance. This isn't confidence, it's compensation. Real power doesn't need to announce itself. Authentic worth doesn't require constant validation. True strength lifts others up instead of pushing them down. Behind every throne sits a frightened child wearing a crown. Truth 7. Fear drives more actions than desire. Every human action maps back to a fear. Not surface fears like spiders or heights, but soul fears. The terror of being abandoned, of being exposed as inadequate, of loving and not being loved back. Why does someone over-explain simple decisions? Fear of being misunderstood. Why do they dominate conversations? Fear of being forgotten. Why do they say yes when every fiber screams no? Fear of rejection. Stop asking what people want. Start asking what they're terrified of losing. Truth 8. Criticism is autobiography. Next time someone constantly criticizes others, listen closely. They're not describing the person in front of them. They're confessing their own inner war. The man who mocks emotional people might be terrified of his own feelings. The woman who belittles others for their appearance might be locked in a secret battle with her reflection. Judgment is almost never about the other. It's about the self trying to disown what it can't accept. Truth 9. False confidence covers real guilt. There's a specific type of person you've probably met. The one who seems overly sure of themselves, always in control, always composed. But watch long enough and you'll see the tension in their jaw, the way they over-prepare, the defensiveness when challenged. This isn't strength, it's guilt wearing a costume. Something they regret, some version of themselves they're trying to prove wrong. Real peace doesn't need to perform. Truth 10. Extremes reveal inner imbalance. Someone who constantly says, "I don't care what anyone thinks," likely cares deeply. Someone who claims, "I'm always happy," likely isn't. Someone who insists, "I need nobody," probably needs everyone. Exaggeration is volume. The question is, what are they trying to silence? Truth 11. Control freaks fear. Inner chaos. When someone's inner world feels disordered, they try to order the outer world obsessively. If someone micromanages every detail, can't handle change, dominates people to feel powerful, it's not because they're strong. It's because something inside them feels completely out of control. The stricter the outer shell, the more fragile the inner self. Truth 12. Performance equals emptiness. Look at the endless, look at me energy, the perfect poses, the constant updates, the curated identity. When someone is constantly performing, it's because they don't believe they'll be seen or loved without it. So they create noise, color, drama. But the person who truly knows themselves doesn't need to be watched. They're already whole. Truth 13. Logic is just disguised emotion. People don't argue from facts. They argue from wounds. Listen to someone passionately defending a position. Beneath the statistics and reasoning, you'll hear something else, a story about how they were hurt, dismissed, or betrayed. Love is just chemical reactions, might sound intellectual, but it's usually the voice of someone who loved and lost so devastatingly they had to make it meaningless to survive. Every worldview is a scar trying to make sense of itself. Truth 14. How they treat weakness reveals their strength. Want to see someone's true character? Don't watch how they treat people who can help them. Watch how they respond when someone can't fight back. Do they mock vulnerability? They're terrified of their own. Do they punish mistakes harshly? They weren't allowed to be human. Do they kick when someone's already down? They're still fighting wars from their past. Compassion isn't weakness. It's what remains when you've stopped running from your own humanity. Truth 15. Attention-seeking is really erasure fleeing. There's a specific hunger that drives certain behaviors. The need to be seen, heard, remembered. To leave evidence they existed. This isn't vanity. It's the echo of a child who learned that disappearing was safer than disappointing, but discovered that invisibility feels like death. When someone needs to be the center of every story, they're not seeking attention. They're fleeing erasure. Truth 16. We attack what we secretly admire. Here's an uncomfortable truth. We rarely attack what we hate. We attack what we secretly want, but believe we can't have. The person tearing down someone's success. They're mourning their own abandoned dreams. Someone constantly criticizing others' confidence. They're grieving the boldness they never allowed themselves. Cruelty is often just desire wearing a disguise. Truth 17. Adults are just children in disguise. Every adult behavior is a childhood survival strategy that outlived its usefulness. The people pleaser learned that their worth depended on making others happy. The perfectionist discovered that mistakes meant losing love. The emotionally distant person was taught that feelings were dangerous weapons. We're all just children wearing grown-up costumes, still trying to solve problems that ended decades ago. Truth 18. Patterns are confessions. If you listen carefully, people will tell you exactly who they are through repetition. Someone who ghosts when intimacy approaches, they're saying, "I learned that closeness leads to abandonment." The person who works themselves to exhaustion, they're confessing, "I believe my worth depends on my productivity." Someone who flirts with everyone but commits to none, they're revealing, "I'm addicted to the beginning because I'm terrified of the ending." Patterns aren't personality flaws, they're survival strategies that became prison cells. The awakening. Once you learn this language, everything changes. You stop taking things personally because you realize they were never about you. You stop trying to fix people because you understand they're not broken. They're protecting something precious. Every truth you recognize in others is a truth you carry within yourself. This journey was never about reading others. It was about remembering yourself. The responsibility of sight. With this new vision comes a weight you didn't expect. You'll walk through conversations hearing the whispers beneath the words. You'll watch people perform their pain, act out their childhood scripts, desperately try to get needs met through strategies that stopped working decades ago. You'll want to shake them awake, to tell them they don't need to carry those burdens anymore, to show them they're enough exactly as they are. But here's what wisdom teaches. You can't save someone from a prison they don't know they're in. The mirror's final secret. The deepest truth isn't about reading others at all. It's about recognizing that every mask you can now see through, you've worn. Every fear you can identify, you've felt. Every pattern you can decode, you've lived. This sight doesn't make you superior. It makes you humble. Because when you truly see someone's pain, you remember your own. When you witness their struggle, you honor your journey. The transformation. Use this understanding not as a weapon, but as a bridge. Not to manipulate, but to connect. Not to judge, but to witness. Because in a world full of people hiding behind carefully constructed facades, the rarest gift you can offer is the safety to be seen, to be known, to be human without penalty. The person who can look past the performance to the performer, past the mask to the face underneath, past the defense to the wound it's protecting, that person becomes dangerous in the most beautiful way. They become someone others can finally exhale around. They become home for souls who've been wandering in disguise their entire lives. Living the truth. Now you understand why some conversations feel empty while others change everything. Why certain people drain your energy while others restore it. Why you've always sensed there was more happening beneath the surface. You've been given the decoder ring to human nature. But with great sight comes great responsibility. Every interaction becomes a choice. Will you use this knowledge to connect or to control? To heal or to harm? To build bridges or to build walls? The person who truly masters these insights doesn't use them to feel superior. They use them to feel connected. They realize that everyone is fighting battles no one else can see, carrying burdens no one else understands, trying to survive in a world that often feels hostile to authenticity. The final challenge. Here's your final test. Can you see someone's deepest fears, their most carefully guarded secrets, their most vulnerable wounds, and still choose love? Can you witness their masks without mocking them? Can you understand their patterns without exploiting them? Can you recognize their pain without adding to it? This is what separates the wise from the clever, the connected from the isolated, the healers from the hurters. Because at the end of all this seeing, all this understanding, all this insight into the human condition, there's only one question that matters. What will you do with what you now know? This is your invitation. Not to become a human lie detector, but to become a truth whisperer. Someone so secure in their own humanity that others feel permission to remember theirs. The world has enough people trying to win. It needs more people trying to understand. The choice, as always, is yours.